Welcome to Editing Humanity, where we unravel the bioethics of CRISPR, one of the most powerful tools ever wielded in science. I'm Giancarlo Stallone, a senior biomedical student at Northern Arizona University with a passion for medicine, innovation, and the science of healing. For me, medicine isn't just about treating diseases. It's about pushing boundaries, understanding the human body on a deeper level, and using cutting-edge technology to change lives. My inspiration to pursue medicine comes from my dad, who's a doctor. Growing up, I was always surrounded by the world of medicine, and I developed a deep appreciation for how it can transform lives. One of the most exciting advancements I've come across is CRISPR. I first learned about it in my Bio 181 class, and the idea of editing genes completely blew my mind. The potential to cure genetic disorders, prevent diseases, and even modify traits is incredible. But at the same time, it raises an important question. Just because we can, does that mean we should? Now, I'd like to pass the mic to the other co-hosts to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shreya Dikshit. I'm a senior at Northern Arizona University studying biomedical sciences with a minor in computer science. I'm also an undergrad research assistant in Dr. Emily Cope's lab at the Pathogen and Microbiome Institute, where I study the relationship between the gut microbiome and Alzheimer's disease using AD mouse models. For me, it all started in 2020 when the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to, and I'm so sorry if I pronounced this wrong, Charpentier and Doudna for their discovery of CRISPR-Cas9 as a gene editing tool. I was, 16, 17 at the time, sitting in my room in India, completely in awe. Here was a technology that could literally rewrite DNA, potentially curing genetic diseases and revolutionizing the world as we knew it. And on top of that, it was discovered by 2 women. That fact alone filled me with a sense of pride and possibility. That moment alone planted a seed in my mind. That made me realize that I wanted to be a part of something bigger, to contribute to research that actually changes life. And that's how a couple of years later, I found myself moving across the world from India to the US to pursue this dream. Fast forward to now, learning about CRISPR in my coursework has both been exciting and surreal. I've gone from reading about it in the news to actually using it in a lab. In my Bio 376 Industrial Microbiology and Biotechnology course at Northern Arizona University, I even got to use CRISPR to edit out a green fluorescent protein from one microbe and insert it into another. It was kind of a full circle moment for me, going from that wide-eyed teenager to someone actually using that very tool that first inspired her. And that's why I'm very excited to learn more about how it can ethically be used for bettering the world while also acknowledging its potential to be misused. I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts on the subject as well as to learn more about the expert perspectives throughout the course of this podcast.
Hello! Glad to be here. My name is Samantha Ertl, and I am an undergraduate senior at Northern Arizona University studying biomedical science. I have a particular interest in microbiology, and I'm excited to gain more valuable insight into the bioethical implications of CRISPR technology. I'm really looking forward to being part of today's discussion and hope to share some insights on the bioethics of CRISPR with all of you. Although my academic and research background is in acarology and parasitology, I've had the opportunity to explore the bioethical implications and applications of CRISPR technology through prior coursework and insightful discussions. As a member of the scientific community, I believe CRISPR is an incredibly important topic to discuss as it has rapidly transformed the future of medicine, science, and bioethics. Personally, I am especially interested in the environmental effects of CRISPR. Growing up in a city with a significant involvement in agriculture, I have developed a strong concern for the ecological impact of CRISPR, particularly in the agricultural sector. Its potential to influence ecological health and sustainability is something I believe warrants careful consideration, and I am truly grateful for the opportunity to be here today, and I look forward to engaging in a thoughtful and enriching discussion on CRISPR.
Hey, my name is Landon Marisol. I'm currently a senior at Northern Arizona University, where I'm pursuing a degree in biomedical sciences. Over the course of my studies, I've developed a strong foundation in a variety of subjects, including biology, chemistry, and physics, which have all played a critical role in shaping my understanding of how the human body works and how we can use science to improve health outcomes. In addition to my academic background, I've gained valuable hands-on experience working in a hospital setting as a transporter. This role has allowed me to interact with patients, healthcare professionals, and the logistics behind patient care, further fueling my passion for medicine and biomedical sciences. Through this work, I've gained insights into the inner workings of a hospital and how critical communication and coordination are to ensure patient well-being. As I approach the final stages of my degree, I'm excited about the opportunity to apply my knowledge to real-world problems and contribute to advancements in healthcare. I'm particularly interested in how emerging technologies like CRISPR and genetic engineering can be leveraged to treat diseases and improve patient outcomes. I look forward to continuing my education and finding ways to make a meaningful impact in the field of biomedical sciences.
Hello, my name is Trevor Pfeiffer, and I am a senior here at Northern Arizona University. I am studying biomedical science and psychology, and I am also a neuroscience intern in an EE lab here on campus. CRISPR is something I have heard about several times throughout my academic career, and I have studied it more times than I can count here at NAU. Throughout my degree, I have developed an in-depth understanding of biology, chemistry, and various other STEM fields that gave me a better understanding of the science world. I plan on going into neuroscience, which interestingly enough has ties back to genetics and is likely a field that would be greatly affected by the development of gene editing technology. While I do not have much experience in CRISPR directly, I am profoundly interested in genetic research and its ties to disease, and how the ability to edit DNA itself could truly change people's lives. I am, however, fearful that it has the ability to be used for bad. I think it's extremely important that we create ethics boards and regulations that specifically deal with the editing of DNA.
Hi, my name is Connor Barrett, and I'm majoring in biomedical science and psychology. I work as both a medical assistant and a research assistant, and that gives me a great mix of hands-on clinical experience and scientific research. My ultimate goal is to become a neurologist because I've always been fascinated with the brain and how it works. One of the things that really excites me in the field of biomedical science is CRISPR. I first got interested in gene editing when I learned about its potential to cure genetic diseases that were once considered untreatable. Just the idea that we could fix DNA itself and prevent diseases before they even happen is mind-blowing. The more I've studied it, the more I've realized how complicated it is, not just scientifically, but ethically as well. Questions about human enhancement, unintended consequences, and who gets access to these technologies make it such an important topic to explore, in my opinion. It's an area of science that's evolving fast, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
But before we debate its implications, let's rewind. Today, we're telling the story of how CRISPR went from a mystery in bacterial genomes to a Nobel Prize-winning breakthrough that changed the face of genetics forever.
It all starts in 1987 in an unlikely place, a lab in Osaka, Japan. Scientists studying E. coli stumbled upon something weird, repeating DNA sequences with spaces in between. They had no idea what it was, so they wrote it down and moved on. For years, these repeats remained an enigma, popping up in different bacteria but with no clear purpose. Scientists label them clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats, or, thankfully, CRISPR.
Fast forward to early 2000s. In Spain, microbiologist Francisco Mojica made the first big connection. He noticed that unique sequences between the CRISPR repeats matched viral DNA. That's when it clicked. Bacteria were storing genetic mugshots of the viruses they had encountered before.
Then came the game changer. In 2012, two scientists, Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna, figured out how to repurpose CRISPR as a gene editing tool. By programming CRISPR's molecular scissors, they could cut DNA at precise locations, opening the door to editing genes with pinpoint accuracy. It was elegant, it was powerful, and it was revolutionary.
Fast forward to 2020, in a landmark moment for women in science. Carpentier and Doudna won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. It was the first time two women had won the prize together. The impact? Immense. From treating genetic diseases to engineering crops, CRISPR's potential is limitless.
But with great power comes great responsibility. Now that we understand how CRISPR came to be, it's time to ask the hard questions, starting first with, should we be editing human embryos?
Should we be editing human embryos? Now, before our listeners picture a sci-fi dystopia full of designer babies and government-controlled genetics, let's break down what we actually mean by editing embryos and why CRISPR is such a big deal. CRISPR-Cas9 is basically the genetic world's version of find and replace. It's a tool that lets scientists cut and edit DNA with incredible precision. It was first discovered as a bacterial immune system. Yes, bacteria have immune systems, and researchers figured out that they could repurpose it to edit genes in plants, animals, and humans. The potential, huge. Imagine a world where we can eliminate deadly genetic diseases before a child is even born. Conditions like Huntington's disease, sickle cell anemia, and cystic fibrosis could be wiped out before they even take hold. Sounds amazing, right? But here's why things get tricky. There's this ethical tension. On one hand, using CRISPR to correct devastating genetic diseases seems like the next logical step in medicine. After all, we already screen embryos for conditions like Down syndrome through prenatal testing, giving parents the option to decide whether they are prepared for the challenges that come with raising a child with disabilities. If we are already making these decisions, why not go further and actually fix the problem at the source? If we have the power to improve the quality of life for future generations, isn't that the whole point of scientific advancement? But then there's this other side of the debate. Some argue that eliminating genetic diseases or disabilities through embryo editing isn't just about health. It's about defining what's, quote, normal or, quote, desirable in a way that could be dangerous. For decades, the disability rights movement has fought against the idea that people with disabilities need to be fixed rather than accepted. If we start editing out conditions that make life harder, does that reinforce the idea that disabled lives are somehow less valuable? And of course, once we open the door to genetic edits, where do we draw the line? Preventing disease is one thing, but what about enhancing intelligence, athletic ability, appearance? It's not a huge leap from treating illnesses to creating designer babies. It's a fine line between medical advancement and eugenics. And that's what makes this such a difficult conversation. But let's be real here. Science isn't slowing down. CRISPR is already here, and the decisions that we make now will shape how we use this in the future. So maybe the real question isn't should we be editing human embryos, but how do we do it responsibly?
Yeah, I think that is a really important aspect of this conversation. The reality of this technology is that it has immense potential, but whether that's for good or for bad is largely up to us. I don't think that anyone with a basic understanding of science wants the world to be editing every single child that is born. I don't think that's productive. There is no need to try and speed up evolution or create superhuman computers. However, if we could take away someone's sickle cell anemia and we choose not to, is that any better? In an ideal world, I think that we would be smart about this, increasing the quality of life for thousands of people who suffer from genetic disorders while not attempting to play God by rapidly enhancing the human species. I think that there is a fine line between scientific advancement and the abuse of scientific discovery. I think that it's really important to protect people's access to this technology and not have it only be accessible to the richest of the population. The last thing we need is any more disparities in healthcare access.
Moving on to the next question. Who gets to decide what genes are acceptable to change?
Figuring out which genes we should or shouldn't edit with CRISPR is a tricky question that brings together science, ethics, law, and society. There's no single authority making the call. Instead, it's a debate that involves scientists, governments, bioethics, religious groups, and the public. From a medical standpoint, gene editing has huge potential to treat genetic diseases like sickle cell anemia and cystic fibrosis. Most experts agree using CRISPR for these kinds of life-saving treatments is definitely justified. But when it comes to non-medical enhancements, like boosting intelligence, changing physical traits, or improving athletic ability, the conversation gets more and more complicated. These kinds of modifications raise big ethical concerns about designer babies, could deepen societal inequality, and might even lead to unintended biological risk. One of the biggest ethical issues is consent, especially when editing the genes of embryos who have no say in the matter. There's also a concern that gene editing technology could widen the gap between the rich and the poor. with only the wealthy being able to afford genetic advantages. While CRISPR is an incredibly powerful tool, we still don't fully understand the long-term consequences of altering human DNA. Any kind of mistake or unforeseen side effect could introduce new health problems or disrupt natural evolution in ways that we could not predict. Because of these risks, many people argue that while using CRISPR to cure diseases is justifiable, we should be really cautious about making genetic changes that could be passed down to future generations. Regulation also plays a huge role in this debate. In the US, the FDA and NIH have strict rules against editing human embryos for reproduction. The European Union also has pretty tight restrictions. Meanwhile, China has been more open to experimentation, which has led to the infamous case of, I believe is pronounced He Jiankui, the scientist who created the first genetically modified babies. The backlash was really intense, and China later introduced stricter laws. But the situation showed just how fast technology can move ahead of regulation. International organizations like the WHO have called for global agreements on gene editing standards. But for now, the rules vary widely from country to country. At the end of the day, deciding which genes are acceptable to edit isn't just about science, it's a societal question. CRISPR has the potential to eliminate suffering caused by genetic diseases, but it also forces us to grapple with tough questions about consent, fairness, and unintended consequences. Personally, I'm torn. While I see the incredible medical benefits, I also worry about how this could further divide the wealthy and the poor over time. It's a debate that's far from settled, and as technology advances, we'll have to figure out where to draw the line.
CRISPR technology holds transformative potential in fields ranging from medicine to agriculture, offering unprecedented possibilities for curing genetic diseases, enhancing crop yields, and tackling global challenges. However, the incredible power of CRISPR also introduces significant ethical, safety, and societal concerns that necessitate government regulation to ensure its responsible use and to safeguard public welfare. CRISPR allows for precise editing of the human genome, raising profound ethical questions. The ability to alter human embryos or make heritable genetic changes can lead to designer babies or unintended social inequalities, as access to such technologies may be limited by socioeconomic factors. Governments must regulate CRISPR to establish clear ethical guidelines, ensuring that its use aligns with fundamental human rights. Without such regulation, there is a risk of exploiting vulnerable populations, such as using CRISPR for non-medical enhancements or discrimination based on genetic traits. While CRISPR is highly accurate, it is not flawless. Off-target effects where unintended parts of the genome are edited could have catastrophic consequences, such as causing new diseases or birth defects. Regulation is necessary to mandate rigorous testing protocols and safety standards, ensuring that CRISPR-based therapies undergo extensive clinical trials and are proven to be safe before being used in humans. Without oversight, the technology could be rushed into applications that put public health at risk. CRISPR has the potential to revolutionize agriculture, creating genetically modified crops or even gene drives that can alter entire populations of organisms. While these developments could be beneficial in the fight against pests or climate change, they also present significant risks to biodiversity. Gene editing in wild populations could lead to unintended ecological consequences, such as disrupting ecosystems or creating superpests. Government regulation can establish oversight mechanisms to ensure that these applications do not threaten global biodiversity or create ecological imbalances. CRISPR technology holds the potential to cure genetic diseases like sickle cell anemia, but the high cost of gene editing therapy could limit access to these treatments, exacerbating health disparities between rich and poor nations or even within societies. A robust regulatory framework can ensure that CRISPR technologies are developed and distributed in ways that prioritize equity and accessibility, promoting fair access to life-saving therapies for all, regardless of socioeconomic background. And you might be asking, what implications does this have for international standards and global cooperation? So CRISPR's global reach means its impact extends beyond borders, and its regulation must follow international cooperation. Without governmental oversight, there's a danger that different countries may pursue different regulatory approaches, leading to inconsistencies and a lack of accountability. Governments must collaborate on establishing international standards for CRISPR technology, enabling ethical, safe, and equitable global practices. In summary, CRISPR's technology's immense potential must be coupled with responsible governance to avoid its misuse and ensure that it benefits society as a whole. Government regulation will provide the oversight necessary to balance innovation with safety, ethics, and fairness. By establishing clear policies and standards, governments can harness the power of CRISPR while mitigating its risks, ensuring that this groundbreaking technology serves humanity in a responsible and equitable manner.
Moving along, I would like to pose the question, could this technology lead to new forms of inequality?
Yes, CRISPR technology could potentially lead to new and profound forms of inequality. While its promise of curing genetic diseases and enhancing human traits is groundbreaking, its accessibility remains a significant concern, largely dictated by cost and availability. At present, the cutting-edge nature of CRISPR-based treatments means that only wealthy individuals, well-funded institutions, and nations with advanced biomedical research infrastructures may have the resources to develop and implement these technologies. This economic barrier could create a stark divide in society, where those with financial means can afford genetic interventions, ranging from disease prevention to enhancements in intelligence, physical strength, and even lifespan, while those without such resources are left behind, unable to benefit from these advancements. Over time, this disparity could lead to a society in which genetic enhancements become a privilege of the elite, deepening existing social and economic inequalities. If certain traits associated with intelligence, athleticism, or resistance to disease become concentrated within a wealthy minority due to genetic editing, the gap between different socioeconomical groups could become more pronounced. This stratification could manifest in various aspects of life, from education and career opportunities to healthcare access and social mobility. Those with genetic advancements might find it easier to secure prestigious jobs, gain admission into top universities, or achieve superior physical and cognitive performance, reinforcing cycles of privilege. Furthermore, the societal implications of genetic modification could extend beyond economic barriers to ethical and moral dilemmas. If employers, schools, or even governments begin to favor individuals with enhanced genetic traits, it could lead to discrimination against those who are unmodified, treating them as inferior or less capable. Such a scenario raises concerns about a possible resurgence of eugenics-like ideologies, where certain genetic traits are deemed more desirable, further marginalizing those who cannot afford or choose not to undergo genetic alterations. This could also lead to geopolitical inequalities, where nations with advanced genetic technologies gain a competitive edge over those without, exacerbating global disparities. Ultimately, without proper regulatory framework, ethical oversight, and measures to ensure widespread accessibility, CRISPR has the potential to reinforce and even accelerate social divides. To prevent a future where genetic enhancements become a new axis of inequality, it is crucial to prioritize equity and access, address ethical concerns, and establish international policies that guide the responsible use of genome editing technologies.
I completely agree with everything you said about CRISPR and its potential to create a new kind of inequality. It's exciting to think about the possibilities, curing genetic diseases, enhancing traits, even extending lifespans. But the reality is that this kind of technology is incredibly expensive right now, and only the wealthy can afford it. This creates a clear divide where those with money can access life-changing treatments, and those without are left behind. As you pointed out, over time, this divide could get even worse. If genetic enhancements become something only the rich can afford, it could lead to a situation where being genetically enhanced becomes a sign of privilege. Imagine a future where only the wealthy are healthier, smarter, and physically stronger because they've been able to afford genetic editing. The rest of society, meanwhile, struggles to keep up. This could create a society where things like education, jobs, and social status aren't just based on skills or achievements, but on your genes. I think one of the scariest parts of this is the ethical implications. If people start to view genetic enhancements as normal, we should see a situation where those without genetic upgrades are seen as inferior or less capable. This could lead to discrimination based on genetics, just like we see discrimination today based on race, gender, or income. And even more concerning, we could see a return to something like eugenics, where certain traits are considered better or more desirable, and anyone who doesn't fit in that mold is marginalized. And it doesn't stop at individuals. On a larger scale, countries with advanced genetic technologies could have an unfair advantage over those who don't have that access. Nations with the resources to edit genes and enhance their populations could dominate on the global stage, leading to even more inequality between countries. This is why it's so important that we don't just rush forward with this technology without thinking about the consequences. We need strong relations to make sure that CRISPR is used ethically and that everyone has a fair chance at access. Otherwise, we risk creating a world where genetic privilege becomes just as entrenched as any other kind of privilege. It's exciting to think about all the good CRISPR could do, but if we don't keep equality at the forefront, it could end up deepening the divides in our society rather than helping to heal them. So as we move forward with CRISPR and other gene editing technologies, we need to make sure they are accessible to everyone and that they're used in ways that don't just benefit the few, but the many. If we get it right, we could use CRISPR to improve the world in ways we never imagined. But if we don't, we might end up creating the new forms of inequality that we have to spend decades trying to undo.
These are just our thoughts, for now, but this conversation is far from over.
Throughout this podcast, we'll be speaking with experts in genetics, bioethics, and law to break down the complexities of CRISPR.
Then we'll come back and reflect. Has our perspectives changed? What new insights have emerged? Stay with us as we navigate the future of gene editing right here on Editing Humanity.